Hi there, this is Ken Hackshaw, and welcome to another session of Risk Unfiltered. We have been trying to get this business owner for quite a while now, and we were fortunate to lock her down this evening. None other than Stephanie Pemberton. And Stephanie, welcome to Risk Unfiltered. Thank you for taking the time. So Stephanie, for the folks who may not know much about you, why don't you tell us a little bit what you do and how you do what you do?
Sure, no problem. So I'm really glad to be here today. It is my day off today, so
Great.
I get to talk about risk in business in a more casual setting, which is nice. So my businesses are basically, I have 4 different companies. One of them is called Bad Granny Media. So we do media production, film, and we basically do that for companies. So we market their products and stuff like that. There's another company called Decoded, which is a TV show on real estate design, construction. You could find that on decodedcaribbean.com. It really explores the entire real estate and architectural landscape in the Caribbean and the individual identities that come from really amazing, great architects and designers here. There is also another show that we have that is just Bad Grannies. And then there's Planting Seeds, which I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot more about in this session, which is an entrepreneurship development company, TV show, magazine, and also recently in the past year, a digital marketplace with a trajectory for us to do a lot more in terms of creating the ecosystem, collecting financial information, distributing grant funding with different partners, and just playing our role in terms of development. So that's basically what I do. And
wow.
Those are the
and you still had time to take a day off today?
I did. I had to, because as an entrepreneur, you go every single day. There's troubleshooting, there's people, there's staff, there's sales, and how fast everything progresses really depends on how fast you are able to push. So I constantly am pushing every day, which is
so do you still consider yourself an entrepreneur, or do you consider yourself a business owner, a mature business owner? Do you still see yourself as operating in the entrepreneurial space?
Yeah, I mean, all of the businesses are all set up and they function. A lot of them can function. Most of the functions are done without me now, but I 100% still see myself as an entrepreneur, because within every business, while we've already have an established base, there is still growth potential in different sectors of every business that I own.
That's interesting.
Innovation, there's constant change. It's good to have a really diversified set of business segments in your company, because when one goes down, more than likely the other one brings it back up. So I spread my risk out a lot in terms of what the functions of the company does and how they all feed into each other. So yeah, I do consider myself that. I mean, I think a lot of people get to the phase where they end up building something great and then they just become a check signer, know?
Okay.
And
so is it that you consider yourself an entrepreneur because you are still growing? Because you are, so you're not on the job today, but the business is functioning, yes? The operations continue, yeah? Okay, so is it that you still consider yourself as an entrepreneur because you're still developing new businesses or still seeking new businesses? Or is it that you still see yourself in that growth space?
I think it's both. But I think that's basically how it'll be with me for the rest of my life. I'm probably always going to be an entrepreneur. It's just who I am. I like new territory. I like uncharted territory. And then when there's a foundation, and I'm on to the next, area of the businesses. In areas of the businesses that I have started, but definitely don't want to become somebody that, oh yeah, I started that and now I'm chilling because I don't know how to do nothing.
Yeah, but at some point in time, you may move from entrepreneur to conglomerate, because you have like right now 3-4 businesses up and going. So let me ask you this: so you have Bad Grammy, Decoded, a TV show, Planting Seeds, which have multiple facets to that. Which one takes up the most time? Where's Stephanie's? So you have 100% of your headspace. Which one consumes the most headspace? Which one of the businesses?
It's always the one that's launching something new. So all of them consume a lot of headspace because they're full on productions. Some of them, Decoded is liaising with architects, talking to 10 million people, filming all around the country, waiting on projects to be done, going through scopes with architects and designers and scheduling filming around them. So there's a lot of different roles that I have to play in in different ways, but it's really when one of them is coming out with something new. So the first season of Decoded, it took up so much of my time. And when we reach the third season now, I barely do much. Like sometimes I just look at the episodes and I'm like, wow, okay, well, maybe we should do this next time, or maybe we should do this next season. But in terms of building it out, I do it myself and then find someone to replace me along the different steps.
Okay.
The same thing now with the planting seeds takes up the most time now because we're building out the digital marketplace and delivery service. That's totally done. So my staff and my team have that up and running. So now I'm more focused on the different stage that we're going through with planting seeds, which is organizing entrepreneurs' financial data and working on networking them and kind of developing them now that they're already under our planting seeds umbrella.
Okay, and so to that point, let's bring in risk into the conversation just a bit, and then we'll come back to some specific questions around the TV show. So, all right, so we know in Trinidad and Tobago and other parts of the Caribbean, they have these incubators, where these budding entrepreneurs go to learn about being an entrepreneur, whether it's marketing or finance, right? And so some schools have it and some organizations have it. My pushback is that you teach folks a lot of stuff, but they don't walk away more risk educated. So specific to, how do you assess the risk of this, or what are your financial risks? What are your operational risks? Yeah. So you are now, so when these entrepreneurs come on board, right? So you sign a contract with them or whatever the case may be. Do you also help them in the growing of their business, or you just take them on if it is for the delivery of their products? What does Planting Seeds offer to the young entrepreneur or the budding entrepreneur? What do they now offer?
I mean, well, there are two things that you discussed. The first one was the entrepreneurship development, companies and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. To be honest, my philosophy on that is you can't really, entrepreneurship to me is not something that you teach. To me, accounting is something that you teach. Maybe HR and leading people is something that you teach. Marketing, digital, those are tools that bring together a business. But an entrepreneur is somebody that naturally wants to create, can identify gaps in the market, and just really has a tenacity of purpose to get things done. Like, that's really what an entrepreneur is. So there's no way that you can actually, you can tell people to do that. But for me personally, no one ever taught me how to be an entrepreneur. I felt as though I learned more by just taking in my surroundings, by meeting other entrepreneurs. The best advice that I've ever gotten was being exposed to so many top business people, both local and internationally. And when I have one conversation with them, I learned 10 different things about my business that I could implement right away, because they are living it and breathing it and are part of it. So unless I have a teacher that is, a master entrepreneur that has built multiple businesses, I probably wouldn't really think that I could learn how to be an entrepreneur from somebody who is not.
And so that is such a great point. That is such a great point. If I use your definition of an entrepreneur, I will consider myself one, because I am constantly reinventing and existing entities into another entity. So I tell folks, if you haven't fought some of the battles I have fought, it's very difficult for you to come into my space. So I don't want you to be just academically trained. There has to be something practical about it. So you would have to afford certain battles. Yeah. And which is analogous to what you're saying. Someone who have learned or studied entrepreneurial science or whatever can't come and have a conversation with you unless they have been an entrepreneur or they're working in the entrepreneurial space. And that makes a lot of logical sense. But that aside, do you have the opportunity to share your experiences with the multitude of entrepreneurs that you now service, which goes back to my original question?
Yeah.
What do you offer? Because
what do we do? So what we do is we have a digital platform that uses them, and so we basically it's online. They have their individual stores, so it's not just part of an overall products all jumbled up. They have their own stores where they can market, and we basically pick up and deliver their items to the end consumer for them, allowing them to not have to worry about real estate space without having to worry about spending a lot of money building and managing a website and then connecting it to a delivery service. And so it basically allows us to do a lot in terms of the distribution. Then when you get into the Planting Seeds network, we have multiple groups. We put people into batches, and then we have different campaigns that we run every single month. So right. One will be an Easter campaign. Who wants to be part of the overall Easter campaign? Then we show them how we're finding innovative ways to attract sales, how we're doing our graphics. We also provide them with professional photos and photo shoots and graphics and videos to promote and market their product. And they learn from a lot of these natural group sessions that come along from actually us selling. So they are getting not just feedback from a marketing, business, sales perspective, but they're seeing that feedback transition into us using it to reach the end consumer. So it's almost like real life learning. That's the marketing side of it. From the operations standpoint, there are a lot of people that are on the site that do come to me and say, I need to fix this, I need to do that. Sometimes I don't have the ability to talk to everybody, but I do hold certain sessions sometimes. But then when we get grant funding opportunities for entrepreneurs, I do sit down with them and go through their business plans and overviews. So I do a quick overview with them. With the two main things that I think that people don't understand, and the two things that I have withdrawn from working with SMEs for so long that they always make mistakes on. And really and truly, yes, there are projections and weighted average cost of capital and your beta to figure out what the value of your company is, and all these great tools and things to make a business plan, a nice 50-page package. But if you don't have, to me, these two basic things down in your mind, then you have no idea where business is going. So I talk to them a lot about their identity and what is the overall identity of the company from a product or service perspective. So I know, and I'm very strong with the identity of all of my brands. So from a marketing, operations, every single other perspective, it flows from me knowing what the vision for the company is. Planting Seeds is an entrepreneurship development company. This is how we do things. I call it Planting Seeds, not Shark Tank, because my personality when it comes to development is more growing, a little bit more delicate, a little less forceful, but it also has development around it. So I basically, every time I see a plant, I'm like, great, planting seeds, things are growing, things are changing, things are evolving. I know very strong and feel very strong about that. So any entrepreneur that comes into my network, I know that that's what I want, because they are my customers essentially. I want them to feel like they're growing every day. I want them to feel like they're bearing fruits. I want them to feel like they're expanding and the garden is getting even bigger. So when you have that overall understanding of what your brand is, whether you are selling, you know, whiteboards or jars or granolas, whatever it is you're selling. The point is that if you understand why you're selling it and you have a real purpose behind selling that particular item, you're going to be really successful, and your marketing campaigns coming out of that will just start flowing because you're already connected to what you're doing. The second mistake people always make is their costing. They just don't cost their products good. They don't include many of the times their own personal labor.
Yeah, yeah. And so you held it along that space as well?
Yeah, I go through full cost analysis with them, and we price out their products. We take a look at competitively what the market is offering, what are the strengths and weaknesses of their competitors. So as a small business entering a market that has a big global players around it, how do you enter that market successfully? And regardless of whether or not there's a conglomerate giant, there are strengths and weaknesses in everything and everybody. So if you're going after a conglomerate, you know that that conglomerate cannot change and evolve very quickly. They can't come out with a new product tomorrow. So if they have branded flavors that they do all the time, boom, you come out with a fusion mix and push it really, really hard so that you start owning that little product line and people look at you for the fusion. It's going to take them a little while to catch up and execute that globally. So there's plenty spaces where you can look at your competitors.
So who are your, specific to planting seeds, and then we'll talk about Bad Granny, but who do you consider competitors for the planting seeds business in Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean? Who's like your number one competitor? Or do you now just like own that space?
Well, to me, then it goes down to me knowing my brand. Okay. My brand naturally says entrepreneurship development. So anybody that is interested in entrepreneurship development, to me, is not a competitor. They are helping me build an ecosystem that I'm trying to create. So I look at people who are enablers to what I am doing as well. But there are different institutions that come out in the entrepreneurship space, and they want to, they take the grant funding out there, they take the financing that's out there, and then they spend so much of it on things that entrepreneurs don't actually need. So that's what I kind of fight against. So like when an entrepreneurship development company comes out, like I'm looking in and I'm seeing, okay, how are you getting funded? No problem, but you're taking these resources. Are you really doing what the entrepreneurs need to be done? You know what I mean? Even finance companies that want to come in, everybody's now trying to attach themselves to the SME market. I see it all the time. I can look at those institutions as my competitors, but no, I'm fine that they're offering financing rather than where I push more investments into entrepreneurs from the show and finding investors from them, and also grant funding. But they want to offer loans. I just, I say to myself, I hope you all are doing the right thing and not looking to make a quick buck, because sometimes an entrepreneur may not need to spend $10,000 on a new laptop right now and pay 15% interest on it. Maybe they should learn to live without it for a little bit, get things done on their phone. Maybe they might find they don't have it. And I say that specifically because my laptop was destroyed the other day. And then I was like, you know what? Am I going to spend $10,000 right now to just get another one? Let me just see for a little bit how I go along without it. Yeah. And I've been doing just fine, and $10,000 is another employee that I can get. That's going to help me even further. But if somebody came into my face and said, you don't have a laptop, oh my gosh, you need one, XYZ, like all of these kind of things. I give you one, you pay me only $200 a week. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Then I might be like, all right, I'm gonna take it. And I would have never learned that. So people trying to offer SMEs these small, tiny loans to get them from A to B is great, because a fridge can make all of the difference to a dessert company. But I like to look at these institutions and say, how are you all really selling this? You're
Yeah.
trying to save money.
It must be a value add. Not so it can't be just about the money. It's what's going to be done with the money. Okay, so
And
on that point, what has been thus far your greatest failure that you have learned the most from?
right. Good. I made so many failures. So
Oh, the one that was impactful, that the highest impact, whether it's personal, financial, or otherwise, but that you would have learned the most from.
right.
If you could
Failures.
share it.
I will definitely share one, but just in terms of the terminology, I believe that failure is, I don't even think that it really exists when it comes to business. It's just learning lessons, right?
Yeah,
Like,
lessons learned.
um,
Okay.
but if I was to make decisions, I think where my biggest failures have lay is probably my inability to always be politically correct.
Mm,
You know what I mean? To be um, that silent voice that gently goes into reasoning later on. I think that
yeah,
I've had to, as an entrepreneur, push myself through so many doors on my own, that when I see things that are wrong or I see, BS, I
yeah.
just can't.
I
It
am.
almost like it bothers me. Like I got a little twitch, and I think that it has also um I mean, thinking of a particular time I've done that, I've done it plenty times. But I did it once when I said something, and then a CEO came to me and he goes, you know, what everything that you said is true. There's nothing that you said was incorrect. And I'm sure you're gonna have half the people here backing you on it. But you know what you've just done? The other half that weren't backing you, you didn't win them over. And now they're gonna wanna see you fail.
Yeah.
So instead of you kind of putting that out there, where you're a little bit more gentle in critique, where you're a little bit more subtle, where you're a little bit more and I'm not saying that I would ever want to change that drive and fight in me, but I definitely think that being diplomatic at times, and knowing when to speak up, and how to deal with people in situations that aggravate you or bother you, that's
Right.
an
So
important.
how then do you impart that learned experience to the entrepreneurs that are part of planting seeds? So whether it's the aesthetics, how you look, how you sound, how you present, because having a product, being an entrepreneur, having a product is one thing, right? Having the other soft skills that go with it is another, because you have to sell both yourself and your product. So how have you taken that learned experience? Not saying that you're now going to be like a soft-spoken pushover. I oftentimes say to folks that the line of business I am in is to step on toes, unfortunately. I'm not in the hug up and love up kumbaya business. How do you convey to or share that learned experience to tell them, well, listen, how you present yourself, how you sound is a part of being an entrepreneur? And is that a
Yeah,
difficult task?
it is a difficult task, because you have to know when to speak up, you have to know when to not speak, you have to know how to get allies, how to building a business and building a conglomerate, or even if you are a CEO and you're hired to build a company, it's almost like you are a leader of a tribe.
Mm,
And being a leader of a tribe, if you look at any shows about kings or queens or tribal leaders, or anybody in any kind of position of organizing people and bringing them under one particular goal, that person who is there is the person that actually has to be crafty. You have
yes.
to be, and maybe crafty may not be the perfect word, but you
No,
have
it
to be
actually
able.
is when you think about it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to be crafty.
Yeah.
You have to take the beating. I mean, there are times when they had entrepreneurs on the site in our network that have cussed me out and told me that I don't, you know, I
Wow.
don't, you're not really entrepreneurship development, whatever. And then a year later, after they get a grant fund and after things come, many people I've had call me. They have a cry session where it's like, I'm so sorry I said this. You really were there from the beginning. So it's like you see anybody that's in a leadership position or a CEO or a founder, you have to be prepared. You have to be prepared to take betrayal, to forgive, to understand that your role is there to serve, and you have to be a little bit thick-skinned. You have to be smart. You have to be wise. You have to manipulate your way around situations sometimes.
And those are skill sets oftentimes you cannot share or teach someone. So in my respectful opinion, some of those things have to be inherent or ingrained in the personality or the psyche of that individual. Some things you just can't teach, right? You could share your experiences. Yeah. Well, yeah.
I mean, this is the thing.
Yeah.
I think you're so right with that, because that's why, I mean, if I look back on my life, the things that I've done, I've learned a lot of empathy. So somebody now can do something to me and I would really try to understand why they're doing it, which is important. I learned empathy from volunteering at the university hospital. When I was in school, I had to wake up at 5 a.m., go through snow, and they put me into the IV therapy clinic, and I had to basically sit down and talk to cancer patients, people who were dying. They thought I was the Trini girl in Canada, and they thought they did a test with me, and they said I would be best suited in the IV therapy ward where they are like the sickest people. Go talk to them, make them happy. So I was like, okay. It was taxing on me. It was actually taxing, because these are people that some of them died.
If I'm having some mental challenges and stuff, so instead of calling Dr. Phil, I can call Stephanie Pemberton and have a conversation around my issues and my challenges and stuff, right? I can do that.
Well, I would suggest you go volunteer at the university because you will get a lot.
No.
That's why you go to do these focus groups, like what you're doing right now on interacting with me. I am learning here. I am expanding things that I'm doing and interacting with a different person. And then when I meet somebody like you again, I might be more adept and I can have conversations and say, there's this guy that I did a podcast with and he shared this. And then that makes me more sociable with them. So it's really something that you can just go out in life and learn,
So baptism by fire. You have to experience it. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it goes back to my point. There's some skill sets that cannot be taught. You have to live it. So like in my space, risk management has become like a life skill, right? So entrepreneurship may be such a discipline as well. It has to develop. It needs to be organic as well, because you have to grow and you have to grow with your business. So, okay, what has been your greatest success business-wise, without giving too much details? What has been your greatest success?
Knowing and finding my purpose, I think. Yeah, I've gotten deals and cut contracts and I can say those things, but really and truly, I was an investment analyst and a financial analyst before. I did loans before. And when you figure out what you really, really are called for and what your life and model, all of the doors open. I think my biggest mistake before I found my niche was trying to just be the best at something, because that's where I was told I needed to go. You needed to work in the banking industry. You need to become a CEO. This is the trajectory to success. And I was constantly battling in it. It was just not working. And I think that my biggest success is realizing when something doesn't work for you and saying goodbye to it and being okay to letting go and starting something new until you find this flow that says, I'm supposed to do this. Because that's the crux of a business. Like nobody can do a planting seeds like I can, because I know this is my purpose. I know it flows in my life. So I think that's a big success for me. in terms of
That's
that.
that's a brilliant example. And to that, I'll ask you the question I've asked everyone. And I remember having the conversation in the podcast with Private Ryan, and I asked him this very same question. What if you wake up one day and you decide I need a 6-month break? Can planting seeds, so if I introduce a risk management concept, it's called key person risk, which is basically if you were to up and leave, the risk to the business that Stephanie Pemberton is a risk onto planting seeds and Brad Granny. You are. So what if you aren't there? You decide to elope, you go to Mexico for 8 months. What happens? Short notice. So tomorrow you get up, you said, heck with this. I need a sabbatical, and you leave. What happens to planting seeds, Bad Granny, and all of these subsets? What happens?
I think something great happens. There are times where I picked up and I left for 4 months, and when I come back, I'm like, what happened here? What happened here? But then a lot of things go down the drain, and then people build it back up and fix the mistake, and they start working on it without you. And I think that my businesses definitely will survive. There will be elements that may fall a little bit, yes.
Okay.
But if you're not periodically taking those breaks from your business, and if you're constantly slaved down and tied to it every day, then you should know you become the biggest risk to your business.
All
because
right. So do you have the construct of the other leaders or partners or employees around you? Are you comfortable enough with their expertise that you can run away 6 months and be confident that the business will operate? It may have some hiccups. You're talking about people risk here. So you're comfortable with the structure of the planting seeds and the Bad Granny organization in the absence of Stephanie Pemberton?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. Definitely comfortable with it. I mean, planting seeds right now is going on to another new project where we are working to build out another part of the site that allows us to work with the financing side of the businesses, and also for us to do the mentorship side, which is what we've been doing for 4 years, but now digitized. But I mean, so that might fall if I left tomorrow. But yeah, the existing projects that were there from before, they would be able to move on and survive. There definitely can be more key people that I could bring on to feel that for them to be able to grow the business, right? So there's going to be people that are making it operationally sufficient, but right now I wouldn't say that I would be able to find somebody who is going to look for strategic growth. And that comes with the employees that I currently have learning the business, because I'm showing them now to think more strategy and to not be afraid of coming up with their new ideas and implementing them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
That took a lot out to me because I'm a control freak when it comes to everything in my work. Like every font, like even when people are writing, all the fonts have to be Arial 14, otherwise we have a problem at the office.
Yeah, that's a bit but so listen to this though.
But I've let that go.
Oh, good for you. I hope you're not just telling me that. So the big buzzword in Trinidad and Tobago now and most of the Caribbean is digital transformation. So are you guys, your entities, tech savvy, or are you at the cusp, or do you have to consider this digital transformation like other entities, or you're already digitally transformed using technology to the max?
Where we're at, and we've been digitally transforming our SMEs for the past year. So we not only are digitally transformed, but we already have a year experience in the digital transformation. And now we are taking the distribution side, but also we are now doing the transitions of investments online, grant funding online, financing online. So that's our next step right now, because we already are working with our network. Our network is moving as a unit. All of the entrepreneurs on our site support each other, which is huge. We all look out for one another. They're fully understanding that planting seeds is there to smell out all of the wrong things and say, no, okay, that's not a really good place for you to be. This, so we all share information with each other. We creating an ecosystem together. Like all of the people on planting seeds, even when we like add fees to delivery fees, I put a little voting thing on it, and we all vote. I vote with like 300 people, and they are the decision makers of the sites mostly. I am just the person that goes and gets the developer to connect with what they want. But they are the people who have built this website and have built this because they build it around their needs. And that's what entrepreneurs need. Young budding entrepreneurs need you to help them because they know what they need. They know they're in business. They understand what they need. They're not stupid people. In fact, some of the entrepreneurs that I met is probably smarter than, half the big CEOs and managers that I've met.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question before we wrap up. And again, I must give much thanks for you. And we have, I think, one of your clients, customers, follow entrepreneurs online. So we usually end with a small Q&A depending on the timing. But I'm not going to ask you to give advice as to what to do. But tell the listening folks, budding entrepreneurs, what not to do.
Okay.
What not to do to succeed. What not to do to succeed.
Don't burn your bridges.
Okay. Personal or professional?
I would say a little bit of both because
you're
work too.
Okay. Right. Yes.
Don't burn your bridges. Don't hire the wrong people as much as possible. Don't think that you are either too big or too small for anything. Think of yourself as any opportunity that comes, you could look into it, or any opportunity that comes, you can do it. So don't think of yourself as too small, too big. Don't put yourself in a box of what size or who you should be. At the end of the day, if you have $10 in your pocket, you can talk to somebody who can put $10 million in there, and you can execute a vision with $10. So don't think of yourself like if you can't. But if you have $100, don't think that you have 100 million and pretend that, you're the king of the world. Don't get cocky. Don't overestimate who you are, because I've seen that happen a lot. And then people crash and burn after, because then they've built up all of these things that they're supposed to be to everybody else. And then when they're not, it hits them really, really hard. So become something first, and then after say, yep, I did that. And then there's no expectation anymore. You're free to go do something else because people already know you for it. You're not constantly struggling to catch up for something that you said that you were going to do. So don't ever.
That's an interesting don't do list. Very interesting. Yeah, very interesting. So Shauna, do you have a question for Stephanie?
I want just to comment on the last point that you made in terms of not putting yourself out there to be something that you're not, and then having to play catch up, with that image that you put out. That is very key.
Interesting.
I've seen that a lot as well too. So yeah.
So let's put Stephanie on the spot, Shauna. How has that experience being part of Planting Seed for you?
It transformed things for our business, honestly.
Ooh, you go, Stephanie.
Because it started during the pandemic time when it was difficult for us to even try and get into stores. So we had an avenue where we could get into the hands of, we'll get our product into customers' hands. That really turned things around for us in 2020. So I'm very grateful.
Good. Well, a testimonial. Do you know who Shauna is, Stephanie?
Yes. Yeah, I know.
Okay, cool. So yeah. So that company, we tend to do some work with them. So how, and this is like I'm getting, as they say on television, in my ear to wrap up. But during COVID, how have you been? How have you helped? Wrong question. how prepared are your entrepreneurial clients for the next big disaster? How prepared do you think they are, given your conversations, or do you need more time to assess the level of preparedness they are? Because we are going to have another major disruption of whatever kind. But how prepared are, because it's the same question I had with the folks in the entertainment space. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the answers vary, but
I think we've crossed the barrier of getting everybody to just join the platform and manage your subscription fee and put your products online. It took us a year to do that. That's done. I'm now slowly allowing more people. So we have a lead list of another 300 entrepreneurs that we are adding to the site in May when we do our upgrades. I could not add them before because I did not want to grow too fast and sabotage the existing subscribers. So now that we've learned the business, we understand where we are. With the new site in April, when they're going to be able to do their product ordering together, so supply chain management. So
okay.
now somebody like Shauna may say, I want to buy a certain amount of bags. And she has that as one of the things that she needs on the system, on the list. There's going to be places where everybody inputs data as to what they need. And then we group the purchases. So now Shauna, instead of her having to buy, 15 bags at a higher price, we batch it with the other entrepreneurs and we can now order hundreds from XYZ, or even raw materials, ingredients, those kind of things. So we are building an ecosystem that I think is going to be very strong for anything else that would happen, because it's empowering the small businesses to work together as a unit, keeping them under one umbrella, working as a unit. The financials that we are going to be added on to the site will also have their sales as well as their costing in it. So it's almost going to be an integration of QuickBooks kind of thing, but much easier, because I find QuickBooks to be very difficult for even SMEs.
Yeah. It's a little complicated.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing. So we're working with Aegis Business Solutions to develop the back end to make sure that people understand that if they put something into this little box here, that's what it actually means. This is a raw material cost. This is not an overhead that goes into your expenses. This
Right.
is you pricing out your product. So we're doing a lot of that because my goal is to be able to build a network of the people who need to support each other. And then when that network is fully developed, you can go to any international, you could go to the bank, the World Bank, you can go to the government of Canada that does massive grant funds. And you can say, listen, we have thousands of people using this platform, allocate grant funding to it, and we can give you the top 3 that are doing this, or these people in this industry that are doing that. Because there is international grant funding out there apart from Trinidad. And I think a lot of SMEs don't understand that. A lot of trainees don't understand that. Jamaica understands it because Jamaicans go out there and they pitch decks out. They know that there is international funding available from all of these institutions, even private VCs. But standing alone with one entrepreneur in a small country, it's much difficult for us to get out of that. But as a whole community working together, developing, working our own ecosystem and going for it, that's where the strength is. The strength lies in us. That's been the success of Planting Seeds. There are people that come out with other platforms that were similar, other things that were similar, but going back to the brand identity that I said that you need to have from the start. Planting Seeds has always been a empower the people type of brand. You know what I mean? And that's come from, my objectives from way before. Like, I want community. I want the vendors to be able to work together and win. The better way to not exploit it is to have your own force. You know what I mean? Because if my entrepreneurs on my site, if a bank does something to them and I find out about it, it becomes a bigger thing. A bank and an institution didn't want them to get funds into their account because they weren't as yet a company registered business. They told me about it. Well, I rocked up in there And I said, well, why are you doing this? They said, well, they didn't have the account. And I was like, well, how long does it take to open an account then? Why are you taking 5 weeks to open an account for this person?
Yeah.
And in the end, you're not finding a solution for them. And why is we're letting them run their business without a business bank account for the past 10 years? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now you're at the last minute. Have you ever gone to the registrations office and tried to register a business yourself? That's why we hooked up with the Ministry of Legal Affairs, because I was like, this cannot happen. It needs to be much easier, you know. And they were like, Stephanie, we're doing all of these great things. We're digitizing that too. So I have a list of all of the entrepreneurs who need legal services, and I'm executing that for them for free.
That's interesting. So you're adding well, obviously you're an influencer of sorts, but you're helping fix, or maybe even that ease of doing business within Trinidad and Tobago is probably becoming a bit easier because of the intervention, like what you just shared with us. And that's a beautiful thing. So you're not only a service provider, you are an influencer in the sense that you're helping entrepreneurs get the job done.
Yeah, I would say planting seeds is the influencer. You know what I
mean? You are not planting seeds.
No, I don't like to like that.
Well, no, I am saying that. Not you. Not you're not saying it. That's coming from Ken Hackshaw. So yeah. So I'm not talking about any inanimate company name. It's a person, and you need to, and you should get kudos for that, because oftentimes, you know, so Newton's laws of motion says that object stays at rest until it gets kicked in the ass. And many of the institutional structures and the way things are done needs to be kicked in the butt. And oftentimes it takes someone from the outside doing it.
And planting seeds does just that. And that's why we get their attention. But it's because the entrepreneurs are all understanding and that we're working together. I can't go and tell the CEO of a bank something, I mean, just by myself, but I can when you are doing this to 300 people in an ecosystem that I have already known about. And now you have to fix it. The problem is not that one guy. The problem is you. So it gives you more strength. Yeah. But I definitely, you know, the whole influencer thing, me personally, I was president.
You don't have to agree. Just accept it and move on. You don't have to agree. So, but you are, and you know what, Stephanie? So I can talk about this for the next hour and a half, but you have things to do, and I'm being pulled elsewhere. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time. We have been trying to do this. And for those listening, I have a bone to pick with Stephanie, where she left us hanging. It's a major thing, but she's going to make up this year.
I'm going to make up for that. Sorry, I wanted to be there.
Yeah. I know things need to go. You're wearing so many hats. So we are proud of what you're doing, but obviously you're cognizant of the dependency that the 300 entrepreneurs have now on planting seeds, like Shona, who's here. So they are dependent on you and your entity, Planting Seeds, providing those services for them to excel and to succeed. The next time we chat, we will speak to, how are you protecting the Planting Seeds from strife and from the outside in and from the inside out. So Stephanie Pemberton, it was so good talking to you. Go forth and continue to grow and multiply the business. We will chat at the other end.
All right. Okay. Bye. Bye.
Thank you. Cheers.